to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. And also, we are updating you on the latest news on the typhoon. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus on today's headlines. The third typhoon to hit the storm-battered Philippines in as many weeks caused major flooding in Manila on Tuesday. Disaster relief and response teams of the Philippine Navy's Naval Forces Southern Luzon have already been deployed to assist local rescue units in Camarines Sur. And Typhoon Ulysses has maintained its strength and is now over the West Philippine Sea, according to Pagasa in its 11 a.m. bulletin. The third typhoon to hit the storm-battered Philippines in as many weeks caused major floodings in Manila on Thursday, trapping some people on rooftops and claiming at least one life in another part of the country. Take a look. Typhoon Vamco packed winds of up to 155 kilometers per hour as it swept across Luzon after making landfall overnight, with authorities warning of landslides and potentially deadly storm surges along the coast. Heavy rain effectively shut down Manila, the sprawling capital of 12 million people, and surrounding areas. At least one person died and 3 others are still missing in Camarines Norte province, according to the country's Office of Civil Defense late on Wednesday. Now, the Weather Service warned of life-threatening storm surges several meters high along parts of the coast, including in Manila, that could inundate low-lying areas. The Bicol region, meanwhile, which Vamco grazed before making landfall, was hit by powerful winds and heavy rain as the eye of the typhoon neared the disaster-prone archipelago. The area, which includes Catanduanes Island, is still reeling from the deadly typhoons Molave and Goni, which killed dozens of people and destroyed tens of thousands of homes. Meanwhile, swathes of Bicol remain without power and with only limited or no telecommunication services after Goni, the most powerful typhoon so far this year, toppled power lines, flattened houses, and flooded roads. Now, Typhoon Ulysses has already weakened has already left the Luzon landmass, but still battering many areas with strong winds and rains. Here is an update from Pagasa. Let's listen in.
Magandang tanghali, narito po ang update sa ating minomonitor na si Typhoon Ulysses na may international name na Vamco. Kanina pong alas 8 ng umaga ay nakalabas na ng West Philippine Sea ang mata or sentro nitong si Ulysses. Kaninang alas 10 ng umaga, ang kanyang mata ay nasa layong 85 kilometers kanluran ng Iba, Zambales. Taglay pa rin po ni Ulysses ang maximum sustained winds na umabot ng 130 kilometers per hour malapit sa gitna at pagbugso na umabot ng 200 kilometers per hour. Ito ay kumikilos pakanluran sa bilis na 25 kilometers per hour. At kahit po nakalabas na yung mata at sentro nitong bagyo dito sa West Philippine Sea, dahil malawak po yung kaulapan ng bagyo, meron pa rin tayong aasahang mga pag-ulan sa malaking bahagi ng Luzon at sa ilang bahagi po ng Kabisayaan. Wala pa naman po tayong binabantayang ibang sama ng panahon na posibleng makaapekto or mabuo bilang isang bagyo sa palibot ng ating Philippine Area of Responsibility. Narito po ang magiging pagkilos in the next 24 hours nitong si Bagyong Ulysses. Patuloy po yung kikilos pakanluran patungo sa gitna ng West Philippine Sea. Inaasahan po na bukas ito ay makakalabas na ng Philippine Area of Responsibility. Pero nakataas pa rin po itong tropical cyclone wind signal number 3 sa kanlurang bahagi po ng Pangasinan sa mga bayan ng Bayambang, Bautista, Alcala, Santo Tomas, Manasique, Santa Barbara, Mangaldan, Dagupan City, Basista, San Carlos City, Calasiao, Binmalay, Orbistondo, mga Tarem, Aguilar, Bugalyon, Lingayen, Labrador, Infanta, Mabini, Sual, Dasol, Burgos, Alaminos City, Agno, Bani, Bolinao at Anda. Nakataas din po ang signal number 3 sa Zambales, Bataan, Tarlac at Pampanga. Ang mga lugar pong ito ay makaranas pa rin ng pagbugso ng hangin mula 121 to 170 kilometers per hour. Ang lakas po ng ganyang hangin ay kaya pa rin po magpabuwal ng mga puno at ng mga poste at makapagminsala po ng mga istruktura kagaya ng bahay gawa sa light materials. Nakataas naman po ang signal number 2 dito sa Metro Manila, sa Batangas, Rizal, Nueva Ecija, La Union, Cavite, Laguna, Bulacan, Benguet, Ifugao, sa ibang bahagi po ng Pangasinan, sa Mountain Province, Nueva Vizcaya, Quirino, Aurora, sa southern portion po ng Ilocos Sur, sa Cervantes, Quirino, San Emilio, Lidlida, Santiago, Banayoyo, Candon City, Galimuyod, Gregorio del Pilar, Salcedo, Santa Lucia, Santa Cruz, Sigay, Suyo, Tagodin, Alilem at Sugpon, at sa central at southern portions ng Isabela, sa Malig, Quirino, Ilagan City, Rojas, Burgos, Gamo, Palanan, San Mariano, Dinapigue, San Guillermo, Benito Soliven, Nagilian, Reyna Mercedes, Luna, San Manuel, Aurora, Cabatuan, Kawayan City, San Mateo, Alicia, Angadanan, Etchague, Joan, San Agustin, San Isidro, Ramon, Santiago City at Cordon. Nakataas din po ang signal number 2 sa northern and western portions ng Quezon Province kasama ang Pulilio Islands. Diyan po sa Mauban, Pagbilao, Tayaba City, Lucena City, Sariaya, Candelaria, San Antonio, Chaong, Dolores, Lukban, Sampaloc, Real, Infanta, General Lacar. Of course, yung mga bayan po sa Pulilio, Bordeos, Panukulan, Patnanongan at sa Humalig. Pati rin po ang signal number 1 sa northern portion po ng Occidental Mindoro, sa Paluan, Abra de Ilog at sa mga bayan po sa Lubang, sa Look at Lubang, and yung northwestern portion po ng Oriental Mindoro sa Puerto Galera at San Teodoro. Sa mga lugar pong ito ay posible pang makaranas ng pagbugso ng hangin mula 61 to 120 kilometers per hour. At nakataas naman po ang signal number 1 sa ibang bahagi ng Isabela at ng Ilocos Sur, sa Abra, Kalinga, sa central portion ng Quezon, sa Gumaca, Macalelon, Pitogo, Unisan, Agdangan, Plaridel, Atimonan, Padre Burgos, Quezon, Alabat at Perez. Pati rin po sa ibang bahagi ng northern portion ng Occidental Mindoro, sa Mamburao at Santa Cruz, at sa ibang bahagi po ng northern portion ng Oriental Mindoro, sa Baco, Calapan City, Nauhan, Victoria at Pola. Ang mga lugar po under signal number 1 makakaranas ng pagbugso ng hangin mula 30 hanggang 60 kilometers per hour. At in the next 48 hours po ay nasa gitna na po ng West Philippine Sea. Sa Sabado po, wala na pong epekto itong si Bagyong Ulysses sa panahon dito sa Pilipinas. Ano pa ang ating mga aasahan? Yung kanina po nating pinakitang wind signal ay para po sa lakas ng hangin. Ngayong araw, meron pa tayong aasahang malalakas na mga pag-ulan. Hanggang mamayang hapon, meron pa pong malalakas hanggang matindi at kuminsan ay buhos or torrential na pag-ulan sa Zambales, Bataan, Pampanga at Tarlac. Meron din pong aasahang katamtaman hanggang sa malalakas at kuminsan ay matinding pagbuhos ng ulan sa Cordillera, Mainland Cagayan Valley, Babuyan, Calabarzon, Metro Manila, Mindoro Provinces, Marinduque, at sa ibang bahagi ng Central Luzon. Meron din pong aasahan na mahihina hanggang sa katamtaman at kuminsan ay may kalakasang pagbuhos ng ulan sa Visayas at sa ibang bahagi ng Luzon. Mamayang hapon at hanggang mamayang gabi po, may aasahan din katamtaman hanggang sa malalakas na pagbuhos ng ulan sa Cordillera, sa silangang bahagi po ng Cagayan at ng Isabela, Zambales, Bataan, Aurora, dito po sa Metro Manila, Cavite, western portion ng Batangas at sa hilagang bahagi po ng Occidental Mindoro kasama ang Lubang Island. At meron din pong aasahan na mahihina hanggang sa katamtaman at kuminsan ay may kalakasang pagbuhos ng ulan sa Western Visayas at sa ibang bahagi po ng Luzon. Naglalabas po ang ating regional offices ng ating heavy rainfall warning every 3 hours, pati rin po yung rainfall advisory para sa ating light to moderate rains. At yan po ay pinupost sa ating official social media account sa Facebook at sa Twitter. So meron pa rin po matinding banta ng mga pagbaha at pagguho ng lupa at sa kaso po ng Zambales, yung posibleng pagdaloy pa rin po ng lahar. Kaya yung ating mga kababayan, bagamat yung maraming lugar na po ay nababaan na po ng signal, ay meron pa rin pong aasang malalakas sa mga pagulan. Huwag po muna maging kampante at maging handa at alerto pa din. Samantala, yung mga lugar under signal number 3, may aasahan pa rin mapaminsalang lakas ng hangin. Muli po kaya po niyang magpatumba ng mga puno at ng poste ng kuryente at makapaminsala po ng mga istruktura gawa sa light materials. Magiging maalon pa rin po yung mga karagatan po sa lahat ng lugar under signals number 3, 2, and 1 at sa ibang bahagi ng Northern Luzon at sa may Southern Luzon and Eastern Visayas. At meron pa rin po tayong nakataas na storm surge warning, especially sa may kanlurang bahagi ng Luzon. Posibleng umabot pa hanggang 3 metro itong storm surge height dito sa mga baybayin po ng Zambales, Bataan, Pampanga, Bulacan, Rizal, Metro Manila rather, Cavite, at dito sa may southern part ng Aurora at sa northern part ng Quezon kasama yung Pulilio Islands. Samantalang up to 2 meters naman na storm surge height ang posibleng maranasan din sa ibang bahagi ng Aurora at Quezon, sa Marinduque, sa northern coasts ng Mindoro provinces, sa Batangas, sa Pangasinan at sa La Union. Manatili pong nakikinig tayo sa ating LGUs kapag sinabi pong lumikas or kapag pinayuhan po na wag munang bumalik sa kanilang mga bahay sa malapit sa baybaying dagat dahil meron pa rin pong banta ng daluyong na posibleng makaapekto sa inyong mga bahay. At inasahan po na kikilos pa rin pakanluran itong bagyo dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Posible pa itong bahagyang lumakas dahil makakapag-ipon muli ito ng enerhiya habang nasa gitna ng karagatan. Makakalabas na po ng PAR bukas ng umaga. Tingnan naman natin ang mga naging pag-ulan sa nakalipas na 24 oras mula alas 8 ng umaga kahapon hanggang alas 8 ng umaga ngayon pong araw. At may dalawa tayong figures, no? 12-hour rainfalls po ito. So yung unang figure natin, yung ating rainfall, yung konsentrasyon ng mga pag-ulan ay nandun po sa may Bicol region kung saan dumaan at nagpabagsak ng napakaraming pag-ulan itong si Bagyong Ulysses. Pero pagdating po ng gabi hanggang kaninang alas 8 ng umaga, ay nasa may eastern side po ng Luzon at sa may southern and central part ng Luzon itong malalakas na mga pag-ulan. So makikita po natin yan. Yung kulay red po ay heavy rainfall po at yung lavender po or light purple, ayan po ay nagpapakita ng intense or matinding pag-ulan. Again, 12 hours po yan. At nais po natin ipakita yung mga istasyon ng pag-asa na nakapagtala ng pinakamatataas na 24-hour rainfall. Muli po mula yan alas 8 ng umaga kahapon hanggang alas 8 ng umaga ngayong araw. Ang nangunguna po sa ating station sa nagtala ng pinakamataas na pag-ulan sa Tanay Rizal, 356 mm. Pangalawa po sa Daet, Camarines Norte, 271 mm. Infanta, Quezon, 255.1 mm. Kasiguran, Aurora, 238 mm. Ito pong top 4 na to ay nasa may eastern side po ng Luzon. Again, yung mga malapit din sa dinaanan ng sentro nitong si Ulysses. Sa may Ambulong sa Tanawan City, Batangas, 200.8 mm. Sa Alabat, Quezon, 199.8 mm. Sa Virac, Catanduanes, 176.7 mm. Legazpi, Albay, 173.8 mm. Dito po sa Science Garden sa Quezon City, 153 mm. At sa Naiya, Pasay City, 137.5 mm. Noong panahon po ni Ondoy noong September 2009, ang pinakamataas po na naitala na pag-ulan, 24 hours, dito po sa Science Garden, 455 mm. Dito po sa Science Garden, para kay Ulysses, 153 mm. Posible po na may malalakas na mga pag-ulan na bumagsak sa kabundukan ng Sierra Madre at wala po tayong istasyon ng pag-asa doon, kaya hindi po yan nasukat. Ang closest po natin na meron ay sa Tanay Rizal kung saan 356 mm na pag-ulan ang naitaya for the past 24 hours. At ang susunod pong update ay sa lagay ng ating mga dams.
Meanwhile, the Disaster Relief and Response Teams, or DRRTs, of the Philippine Navy's Naval Forces Southern Luzon have already been deployed to assist local rescue units in Camarines Sur. The Philippine Navy, through NFSL, deployed one of its DRRT to the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council Operations Center in the provincial capital compound of Pili, Camarines Sur. According to Philippine Navy Public Affairs Office Chief Lieutenant Commander Maria Cristina Rojas, In a statement forwarded late Wednesday night, and Rojas said another DRRT was dispatched from NFSL headquarters in Legazpi City to conduct preemptive evacuation to the residents of Pili and Bula towns of Camarines Sur Wednesday. Another DRRT from NFSL's Naval Special Operations Unit 3 is deployed at the municipality of Nabua, while two DRRTs composed of naval and marine reservists were put on standby. Now, these DRRTs was deployed for preemptive and rescue operations in the said province because of the inclement weather brought about by Typhoon Ulysses. Meanwhile, residents of coastal areas in 5 towns and 1 city in Pangasinan have been evacuated due to the threat of storm surge as Typhoon Ulysses battered the province with strong winds and moderate to heavy winds. In an interview on Thursday, Shalom Balolong of the Pangasinan Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office said there are 200 individuals evacuated in Sual Town, 30 in San Fabian Town, 64 in Bolinao, while evacuees in Bani and Lingayen towns and Alaminos City are still being accounted. He said that some barangays in Lingayen and Dagupan City were reported flooded due to heavy rains and high tide. Balolong said there are no reported casualties yet and injuries in the province. The PDRRMO, headed by Governor Amado Espino III, has raised the province status to red alert on Wednesday as Pangasinan was placed under storm signal number 3. And the Armed Forces of the Philippines has dispatched all of its disaster response units to areas affected by Typhoon Ulysses to help local government units or LGUs in aiding people severely affected by the weather disturbance. Take a look. The AFP, through the Joint Task Force, National Capital Region, JTF NCR, has deployed disaster response units in and around Metro Manila to assist local governments in rescuing and delivering aid to residents affected by Typhoon Ulysses, according to AFP Chief of Staff General Gilbert Gapay in a statement on Thursday. Gapay said the AFP is also monitoring the situation along the Marikina River that's experiencing heavy flooding due to intense rains brought by the typhoon. He said evacuation is ongoing with the Naval Task Group of the JTF NCR joining city disaster risk and reduction units with their rubber boats, trucks, and personnel. Also on hand were 2 disaster response units composed of 3 teams from the 7th Civil Relations Group, 101st Search and Rescue Volunteers, and REACT Philippine volunteers who were deployed to Marikina City at 6:30 this morning. An amphibious team was on its way to Marikina City while a search and rescue unit composed of 2 teams from Bantay Bayan and 131st volunteers was deployed to areas along the Tulyahan River and Caloocan. He said we continue to maintain strong coordination with the NCR, local government units, the MMDA, Manila Development Authority, and other national government agencies in closely monitoring the situation in critical areas. In affected areas of the Bicol and Southern Tagalog regions, a total of 126 disaster response units with more than 1,000 trained and equipped personnel, 150 mobility assets, 7 rubber boats, and 6 air assets were dedicated to humanitarian and disaster response operations. In Rizal, meanwhile, particularly in the municipalities of San Mateo and Rodriguez, Gapay said 2 water search and rescue or WASR teams from the 525th Engineering and Construction Brigade were assisting the LGUs in rescuing residents affected by heavy flooding. They will be augmented by 2 teams from Cavite, he said, noting that search and rescue helicopters were also on standby for deployment to Marikina and Rizal as soon as the weather permits. Meanwhile, the Northern Luzon Command is conducting clearing operations in Ilocos Norte, particularly in Pagudpud, due to multiple landslide incidents. No casualties were reported in these incidents, according to Gapay. He also appealed to residents in these areas to heed calls for preemptive evacuation and cooperate with government units for their safety. Meanwhile, the Manila International Airport Authority suspended airport operations beginning midnight until 6 a.m. today, November 12, due to the typhoon. According to a report in the Business Mirror, the suspension was made in consultation with the Airline Operators Council, the Air Carriers Association of the Philippines, or ACAP, the Weather Bureau Pag-asa, Ninoy Aquino International Airport, NAIA, and Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP. Similar typhoon forecasts presented by Pag-asa, NAIA, and the airlines revealed that the typhoon will be strongly felt in Manila by 2 a.m., bringing strong winds that would endanger flight movements. So airline operators that employed preemptive cancellations were told to submit their new flight schedules or requests for retimings by 7 p.m. yesterday night. And slotting will be done in a way that would cause minimal delay in passengers' travel plans. Airline ground handling agents were reminded to implement maximum deployment of personnel both inside the terminals and at the ramp, and ensure availability of enough ground equipment once flight operations resume. As part of their contingency measures, AirAsia evacuated some of their planes out of Manila, while Philippine Airlines and Cebu Pacific tied down their fleet of airplanes to ensure their safety. Philippine Airlines earlier issued several flight cancellations for Wednesday and Thursday. All Nippon Airways and United Airlines have likewise canceled their flights, which are scheduled to arrive tonight. The MIA adopted preemptive measures to cushion the adverse impact of Typhoon Ulysses. Meanwhile, operations of rail systems in Metro Manila have been suspended due to flooding caused by Typhoon Ulysses. Now, in a message to reporters, the Department of Transportation said railway operations of the Metro Rail Transit Line 3, the Light Rail Transit Line 1 or LRT-1, the Light Rail Transit Line 2 or LRT-2, and the Philippine National Railways are suspended until further notice. We will advise resumption of railway operations once all systems checks are done and cleared, according to the DOTR. EDSA busway operations, meanwhile, would resume at 1 p.m. today, and it already resumed. Earlier, the MRT-3, in a Facebook post, advised that it would not operate as scheduled due to limited power supply and strong gusty winds. Meanwhile, the PNR said it is currently monitoring the water level and ground condition of its train stations via its newly launched AI surveillance system. With an average of 20 typhoons, heavy monsoon rains, and massive floods hitting the country every year, the Philippines is no doubt a disaster-prone country. Heavy rains effectively shut down Manila, the sprawling capital of 12 million people and surrounding areas. Flood victims share their stories and experience. Take a look.
Noon, Doy. Pangalawa na ngayon. Hindi ko man nakalain na ganito pala ngayon. Kaya nakahiga lang kami mag-asawa. Tapos, sabi nung kapitbahay, nagkagulot. Tapos lumabas yung asawa ko, tininan yung tubig. Hanggang dito na pala. Dali lang ko nang, ito lang damit ko dala.
Pinabayaan na ho namin yung gamit namin. Yung bata talaga ang inuna namin kasi yung gamit pwede naman mapalitan yan yung mga anak po talaga namin ang inuna namin. Kaya nung time po nung nasa loob na po ng bahay namin yung baha, umakyat na po kami lahat sa bubong. Hanggang sa humingi pa ako ng tulong sa teacher ng anak ko na ma'am baka ho pwedeng makisuyo po kami na baka ma-rescue po. Yung kapatid ko pong naiwan, may 4 pa pong bata doon. Palipat-lipat po sila ng bubong kasi yung bahay po namin na tinitiran, lubog na po talaga. Wala na. Lahat po ng gamit namin inanod na, wala na po.
Typhoon Ulysses has maintained its strength that is now over the West Philippine Sea. According to Pag-asa, in its 11 a.m. bulletin, as we heard earlier, the typhoon packs maximum sustained winds of 130 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 200 kilometers per hour. Tropical cyclone wind signal number 3 is still hoisted over the western portion of Pangasinan, Zambales, Bataan, Tarlac, and Pampanga. Now, destructive typhoon force winds will continue in these areas. Areas under signal number 2 are the central and southern portions of Isabela, Quirino, Nueva Vizcaya, Mountain Province, Ifugao, Benguet, the southern portion of Ilocos Sur, La Union, the rest of Pangasinan, Aurora, Nueva Ecija, Bulacan, Metro Manila, Cavite, Rizal, Laguna, Batangas, the northern and western portions of Quezon, including Polillo Islands, the northwestern portion of Oriental Mindoro, Puerto Galera, San Teodoro, and the northwestern portion of Occidental Mindoro. Signal number 1, meanwhile, is hoisted over the rest of Isabela, Kalinga, Abra, the rest of Ilocos Sur, the rest of northern portion of Oriental Mindoro, and the central portion of Quezon. In a related news, power distribution firm Manila Electric Company or Meralco said some 3,803,810 customers in its franchise areas have been without electricity as of 5 a.m. on Thursday. This is amid the onslaught of Typhoon Ulysses, particularly in Metro Manila, Central Luzon and Calabarzon, Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Rizal, Quezon, which downed electric poles and wires. Rest assured that Meralco's crews will immediately attend to the troubled areas as soon as the weather allows, according to Meralco. In its latest update, the number of affected customers was down to about 2.9 million. Meanwhile, the National Grid Corp of the Philippines has listed unscheduled power interruptions due to the tripping of some transmission lines. Some parts of Zambales had power interruption due to the tripping of the Botolan Candelaria 69 kilovolt line that affected the Zambales 1 Electric Cooperative or Zameco 1. The Botolan Castillejos 69 kV line was also damaged, affecting the franchise areas of Zameco 1 and 2. Power interruption was likewise experienced in the Mountain Province. Parts of Cervantes and Quirino, Ilocos Sur, parts of Benguet and Tinglayan, Kalinga, due to the tripping of La Trinidad Sagada 69 kV line, affecting electric cooperatives of the Mountain Province Electric Cooperative or MAPRECO and Benguet Electric Cooperative or BENECO. The Itogon Ampucao 23 kV line was also down, affecting Beneco franchise areas, while the Hermosa Florida Blanca 69 kV line interrupted powers in areas served by the Pampanga 2 Electric Cooperative and San Fernando Electric Light and Power Company. And trading of foreign exchange and equities, among others, have been suspended for Thursday due to the onslaught of Typhoon Ulysses. In an advisory, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas said since Malacanang suspended work in government offices in typhoon-affected areas, this also covers several operations. And these include cash deposits and withdrawals at the security plant complex, the operation of the Philippine Payment and Settlement System, or PhilPass, the peso-US dollar trading and monetary operations. Relatively, equities trading at the Philippine Stock Exchange has also been suspended. In a memorandum issued on Wednesday, the PSE said trading will continue for Thursday, November 12, if the current public storm signal warning number 3 has been downgraded to signal number 2 or 1 in Metro Manila. Otherwise, if the public storm warning signal remains at 3, then there will be no trading at the Philippine Stock Exchange. Meanwhile, Storm Ulysses in the Philippines, has entered the East Sea and is forecast to reach the central coast of Vietnam in the next 72 hours, according to the National Center of Hydrometeorological Forecasting. At 7 a.m. on Thursday, the eye of Storm Vamco was about 820 kilometers southeast of Vietnam's Hoang SA archipelago with wind powers of 115 to 135 kilometers per hour, according to the government website. In the next 24 hours, the government website said the storm is forecast to move westwards at speed of 20 kilometers per hour. In the next 24 to 48 hours, it will continue moving westwards at 15 to 20 kilometers per hour and is expected to reach the coast between Ha Tinh and Quang Nam provinces of Vietnam by Sunday morning. Vamco is predicted to make landfall in Ha Tinh and Quang Binh provinces Monday. Vamco is the third storm in November and 13th to hit Vietnam this year. The previous storm, Itao, made landfall on November 10 and weakened into a tropical depression, causing heavy rains in South central and central provinces. Storm Etau claimed at least 2 lives in Quang Nam and Binh Dinh provinces. ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
Turuan din natin ang mga bata ng tamang paghugas ng mga kamay. Basain ang kamay ng tubig at lagyan ng sabon. Kuskusin ang iyong mga palad. Gayon din ang pagitan ng mga daliri. Pati na ang likod ng mga palad at daliri. Ganon din ang iyong hinalaki. Kasama ang mga dulo ng iyong mga daliri. Pagkatapos ay iyong kalapulsuhan. Gawin ito ng kahit 20 segundo. Pagkatapos ay banlawan ng tubig at patuyuin.
It says the best defense is still containment.
We are in uncharted territory.
Final volume 450. FI on to 100%. Traffic back. Consumption eh.
In other news, in the ASEAN region, the mother of a teenager whose body was found in the Malaysian jungle told an inquest the police response to her disappearance while on holiday had been slow and ineffective. Take a look.
Following day, the Monday, therefore, senior police officers came to speak to us that evening, and I was so deeply worried because they were I feel quite rude and quite arrogant with us. They didn't want to particularly communicate with us. They didn't really ask us any questions, and they just said to me, stay calm, let us do our job, more or less, we know what to do, just be quiet. So that was really deeply upsetting because I knew they were senior, and I was thinking to myself, if that's what we're dealing with, we will not find Nora.
The body of Nora Quarin, a French-Irish 15-year-old with learning difficulties, was discovered unclothed last year after a massive hunt through the rainforest. Authorities insist there was no foul play, but her parents believe she was abducted. They said the teen would not have wandered off alone. In other news, the Philippines will extend a key military pact with the United States for another 6 months. That is according to the foreign minister on Wednesday. President Duterte had given notice to Washington in February that he planned to axe the visiting forces agreement after accusing the U.S. of interference in his narcotics crackdown. The plan to break the deal, central to hundreds of joint military exercises with the U.S. every year and a major component of their nearly 70-year-old alliance, was suspended in June. The latest decision announced by Foreign Minister Teodoro Locsin came after President Duterte congratulated U.S. President-elect Joe Biden and said he was looking forward to working closely with the new administration. In a statement addressed to U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, Locsin said the decision would enable us to find a more enhanced, mutually beneficial and lasting arrangement. Meanwhile, the stay of some 350,000 Filipinos facing deportation in the U.S. might be extended amid the expected immigration policy changes under the administration of U.S. President-elect Joe Biden. In a laging handa briefing, Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, said there are around 350,000 pending cases of deportation among Filipinos in the U.S., a number of which is now on appeal at the courts.
Well, sa tingin namin na makakabuti pero lagi namin minomonitor yung mga developments tungkol sa immigration at saka sa mga workers visa at lahat. Maraming beses ay nagpapalit naman pero maraming mga members ng US Senate na mga Democrats na nagpupush na medyo luwagan nila yung immigration. Pero ang ating image dito sa Amerika ay napakaganda. So, ang mga Pilipino hindi nahihirapan talaga pag nag-apply sila. Ang isa lang paayo ko talaga is just to follow the rules para ganon wala tayong problema. No? Yan lang. So, pero sa tingin ko, makakabuti dahil marami sa mga party ni President-elect ay nagpupush na palitan yung mga provisions sa mga immigration laws dito sa Amerika. Well, right now, meron tayong 350,000 pending cases of deportation. Siguro, maybe quite a number of those can actually, it's now on appeal at yung mga deportation courts. So, posibleng pwedeng ma-extend yung kanilang stay dito. At it's also possible na itong mga changes that might occur during the presidency of President-elect Biden may change many of these things that will affect many of those that are already in that deportation cases. No? Pero marami pa rin na mga ibang Pilipino na nag-apply rin ng itong mga DACA at TRIM. Lahat yan na sa tingin namin is going to be good also for them, no? Because the indications are the Biden presidency will change many of these things that will be beneficial for many of our Filipinos here in the United States.
The Philippines has been excluded from the list of eligible states to participate in the U.S. H-2A and H-2B visa programs in 2020. A report earlier cited a Federal Register report saying the Philippines had a high H-2B overstay rate, with nearly 40% Filipino visa holders overstaying in 2017 alone. The H-2A program allows American employers to bring foreign nationals to the U.S. to fill temporary agricultural jobs, while H-2B visas are dedicated to temporary non-agricultural jobs. ASEAN in Focus, we'll be right back.
The search for the best continues. Tagisan ng Galing Part 2 is now accepting audition entries. Kung ikaw ay 21 to 59 years old at may angking galing sa pagsayaw, mapasolo, duo o grupo man, magpadala na ng audition entry. Narito ang mga guidelines. Para makapagpasa ng entry sa dancing category, contact Shing at 0995-880-8004. Ito na ang pagkakataon mo para maging tagisan ng galing grand winner at manalo ng 2 million pesos. Para sa karagdagang impormasyon, i-like ang Tagisan ng Galing Facebook page. Kaya sali na!
Malalayong lugar ang kanilang narating para maghanap buhay. Tulungan ang pamilyang iniwan sa sariling bayan. Yan ang ating mga overseas Filipino worker. Pero dahil sa di pangkaraniwang pangyayaring hatid ay krisis, may ilan sa kanilang nagpasyang umuwi. Pinagyaman ang sariling lupain, nagtayo ng negosyo na kasama sa puhunan ang sipag at tiyaga. Ang mga OFW, maraming sakripisyo, ninanais maging kapaki-pakinabang maging sa kanilang pagbabalik bansa. Sapagkat ang ating mga bagong bayani, Pilipino pa rin sa puso at damdamin.
15 Asia-Pacific nations are set to sign an enormous free trade deal at an online summit that started Thursday with the pact seen as a coup for China in extending its influence across the region. Now, once signed, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, will be the world's largest trade pact in terms of GDP, according to analysts. The pact, which was first proposed in 2012 and viewed as a Chinese-led rival to a now-defunct U.S. trade initiative, loops in 10 Southeast Asian economies, along with China, Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, and Australia. After 8 years of negotiating with blood, sweat, and tears, we have finally come to the moment where we will seal the RCEP agreement this Sunday, according to Malaysia's Trade Minister Mohamed Azmin Ali. Ahead of the virtual meeting, Vietnam's Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc also confirmed the pact would be signed this week during opening remarks at the online summit. India had been due to sign the pact but pulled out last year over concerns about cheap Chinese goods entering the country, though it can join at a later date if it reverses its position. The RCEP, whose members account for about 30% of global GDP, would be a major positive step forward for trade and investment liberalization in the region, according to Rajiv Biswas, Asia-Pacific Chief Economist at Global Business Consultancy, IHS Markit. The pact's expected signing comes as the 10 members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations fight to mitigate the crippling cost of the coronavirus, which has ravaged their economies and left many battling a severe public health crisis. And in a rare find, scientists have identified a new species of primate, the Popa langur, living in the forests of central Myanmar, with a mask-like face framed by a shock of unruly gray hair, but with only 200 to 250 left in the wild today. Experts will recommend that the leaf-eating species be classified as critically endangered. Take a look.
Popa mountain, which is the range of this new species was relatively large, but due to human encroachment, habitat destruction, increasing villages, agricultural land use, and so on, the habitat is lost for that new species, so it's just occurring now in 4 different populations, which are also quite isolated. The largest population at Mount Popa has a little bit more than 100 individuals. The others are much smaller, and we have to really start to do some measures in general. For langurs all over Asia, habitat loss and fragmentation is one of the biggest threats at all, but also very problematic is hunting. We know, or we have to know, what we have out there. We have to inventorize the all-over diversity on this planet. And only when we know that, we also know what we can protect. And we know all the problems with the biodiversity crisis, climate change, so we have a dramatic loss of species daily. It would be very sad if species go extinct before even we know them. But of course we try to avoid that and really start with protection work now together.
The first evidence of the new species was found not in the wild, but the backrooms of the London Natural History Museum, where genetic analysis revealed that specimens gathered more than a century ago, when Burma or Myanmar was a British colony, were something new. The reclusive monkeys were finally captured on film in 2018, revealing their distinctive fur coloration and markings. Trachypithecus popa, or T. popa for short, has a gray, brownish, and white belly with black hands and wrists that look a bit like gloves. Its agile tail, at nearly a meter, is longer than its body, with the creature weighing about 8 kilograms or 18 pounds. In the last decade or so, Myanmar has opened up to international collaborations with scientists, which has led to the discovery of species new to science, including reptiles, amphibians, but the discovery of a new primate is rare. And before we go, we want to show you some images of the Philippine Coast Guard. Take a look. Coast Guard, the personnel braving the floods in Barangay Barangka, Marikina City to conduct area assessment and ensure that all trapped individuals and families will be assisted safely and in the soonest time possible. All right, we have an update from Pag-asa. Let's listen in. Let's watch this. So those are the latest storm signals in the country. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll bring you the latest as we go along this day and follow this developing story. That is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region of Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.